Good morning. Please be seated. It's great to be here. I'm Reverend Jay Wallen, the settled minister here at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Sarasota. And it's great to be here. It's our first week of 2 services, so either you are really late for the first service or you read our emails and so forth. So thank you for being here at this grand experiment, the first time since COVID that we're back to 2 services. We want to invite especially visitors who are here as well as online to let them know that they can participate in any of the events at the church. And if you'd like to sign up to get a newsletter, you can either go to the table right outside the sanctuary or online on our website. There's a banner marked welcome, and you can just click on that and you can fill that in. We'll have coffee. If you didn't get any on the way in, we will have some coffee and dessert after the service, and we look forward to getting to know each other better. We have a few announcements today. First, from the auction committee, Karen Bush.
I'm not Karen Bush. I'm Sally Celebrate. I'm from New Orleans. How are y'all, folks? I'll tell you what, I'm so excited about the auction. I can't stand it. I'm even going to put together my best Mardi Gras outfit to wear. And if you want to do that, you can do that too, but wear whatever you want. You know, the auction committee asked me to check on a couple of things today. What day is the auction going to be on? That was the next question. What's the date? February 4th. Saturday, February 4th. You're good. You know your stuff. And what kind of feast are you going to have at this auction? Mardi Gras? Cajun? Cajun? Lordy, Lordy, I looked at those recipes. I'm from New Orleans, and I got to tell you, those recipes are fantastic. You're going to have a wonderful feast, but they don't have New Orleans heat to them. I didn't see any heat in those recipes. I might bring some of my own heat to add. Anyway, it's going to be a fabulous feast, but you don't need to worry about it being too spicy, because I know you Sarasota folks can't handle that. So I'll tell you what, you're looking a little tight, a little stressed out today, and I'm into this yoga stuff. I don't know if you heard of it. I think you need to do a little stretching. So how about if you stretch? It's high, higher, higher. Oh, didn't that feel great? Hallelujah. Hallelujah. So I have a couple more things to check out. When are you going to buy your ticket? Today. Out there in the courtyard, there's a whole ticket table for you to buy your ticket if you haven't bought it yet. And when are your donations due? 22nd, January 22nd. That's next Sunday, folks. So if you haven't gotten your donation in, you want to hurry up and do it either at the table or online. Excellent. And one more time, when is this auction going to happen? February 4th, which is a Saturday at noon. Fantastic. Now, I know you're still looking a little uptight, so I'm going to suggest something for after the service. A little more stretching will do you some good. So after the service, I want you to stretch your legs. You stretch them as far as you can until you get all the way out there to that donation table and the ticket table. Bye now.
Definitely not spicy for me. So another quick announcement, embracing our differences. This is the second year that we will be participating in that, and so you can see up on the screen there, the Women of the Bluest Eyes is the painting that we got. I do want to point out this is an event that's in the park. Next Sunday is a big kickoff from 12 to 3. Of course, if you're in the second service, you won't be there at the beginning, okay? But But it really is a great event. A lot of the money raised on this goes to help students in the schools. And this painting that we chose specifically is based on the book The Bluest Eyes by Toni Morrison, which is a banned book in the schools now. So it's very, very poignant. We have a quick video of the artist to show.
Hi, this is the artist Donna M. Richardson, and this is my piece, Women of the Bluest Eye. It's based on the book by Toni Morrison. She's a great inspiration to me, and has been for many years, and she is the primary inspiration for this piece. This piece speaks to a longing that little melanated girls have where they want to be seen as beautiful, as pretty. Unfortunately, they're fed the narrative of what is beautiful and what is pretty in our country, and that primarily is blonde hair and blue eyes. Here I have Viola Davis and Oprah Winfrey as children, and I have chosen them because they've spoken to this desire within themselves to have blue eyes or straight hair, long straight hair, or fair skin, because that was the ideal, or that is the ideal of beauty in this country. I hope that you'll come out and see this piece and others at the Embracing Our Differences exhibit in 2023, starting in Sarasota, Florida. I hope to see you there, and thank you for your time. Be blessed.
A couple other quick announcements. The Art Council, we have a new exhibit up in the Lexile Gallery. Two of our members, Bet Cummings and Sally Kohler, have their work on view. Sally is showing her small mosaics and jewelry. Bet is showing an exhibition of her paintings entitled Trees Are the Answer. So please stop by after the service to meet the artists and see their work. Really is beautiful, a beautiful work. Also, and lastly, next Saturday, Jim Scott, who is a UU performer, he has written many of the hymns in our Gray Hymnal, will be here for a concert on Saturday at 3:30 entitled Singing for Peace in the World. And then following that concert, we will have a bonfire and a potluck, and so if you have questions, see Mary Lou Kella, and I hope it'll be a really fun community event. And so now, since I got to be part of the first service as well, I got to experience our performer, Sanaya Carroll, and you are in for a great, great treat. So I will let her introduce herself, but it's all yours.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm so honored to be here. I've been here many times. I've been in Sarasota for about 8 years now, and so I've been up here with the Jazz Club doing other things, but I've never been to a Unitarian service. And if I'm going by the last one, you guys are on to a good thing. I think I'll be back. Yeah. Anyway, I just want to make a quick commentary to The Bluest Eye, because as Reverend Jay said, it is a banned book, which I find rather interesting. Well, I'm finding a lot of things rather interesting. But when I was a little girl, up into my 20s, my 30s, I'll stop there. Going forward, even from there, I had a little problem, had a little chip on my shoulder. Well, really, it wasn't on my shoulder, it was everywhere. Everywhere you could see. I mean, it was brown. It was a brown chip. It was called my skin. And it wasn't that I was black, but I was dark black, which made a difference even with being black. Yeah. And so I thought that part of me was the least attractive thing. I thought that was actually not good. But I think it was last year, I was taking a walking my dog. We were on our way home, and the sun was setting, and this beautiful golden rays of the sun, and it happened to catch my arm right here. And I don't know what happened, because I didn't know how deeply set, you just don't know how deeply set these self things can be. But I looked at my skin and I said, holy smokes, it's brown. And I like it. It's beautiful. It's actually okay. Not only is it okay, it's wonderful. It's me. And it was like I fell in love with myself in a way I never had before. It was really kind of weird. And the beautiful thing for me about that was that it didn't mean that I said, oh, well, brown is better than pink. Brown is better than tan. It was like the brown was just as good as the pink, the tan, the polka dotted, the striped. You know, it was beautiful. And so that was my falling in love with myself. And I hope all of us get, if there's anything about ourselves that we don't like, I hope we all get to that point of loving that full package that we are. Because even if, you know, it's beautiful, right? It is. April 4th, 1968. Martin Luther King, whose birthday we're celebrating tomorrow, he was assassinated. And there were a lot of things. I was just a little kid. I didn't understand it. They didn't really explain it to me. I don't know why they didn't. They didn't sit me down. I didn't even know what Martin Luther King really meant. But I do now. And I'm going to do a tune today that Nina Simone did. Her bassist, Gene Taylor, wrote the song that same night after he was murdered, and she sang it the next day. And boy, if you ever go on YouTube if you haven't, and bring your tissues. And the amazing thing about this song is that it is still relevant right now. It shouldn't be. It should be from the past, but no, it is. We are still climbing the mountain. It is still relevant, as you will see. Once upon this planet Earth lived a man of noble birth, preaching love, preaching freedom for his fellow man. He was dreaming of a day peace would come down to earth and stay. And he spread his message all across the land. Turn the other cheek, he'd plead. Love thy neighbor was his creed. Pain, humiliation, even death, he did not dread. With his Bible at his side, from his foes it would not hide. And it's sad to know that this great man is dead, 'cause he had seen the mountaintop, and he knew he could not stop. Always living with the threat of death ahead. Folks, you better stop and think, 'cause he's a-heading for the brink. What we're gonna do now that the King of Love is dead? Will the murders never cease? Are they men or they beasts? What do those people, what do they hope to gain? Will my country stand or fall? Is it too late for us all? And did Martin Luther King and so many others have to die in vain? 'cause he had been through the mountaintop, and he knew he could not stop, always searching for better days ahead. Folks, you better stop and think, 'cause we're heading for a brink. What we're gonna do now that the King of Love is dead? He was for equality for all people, you and me. Full of love, full of goodwill, hate was not his way. He was not a violent man. So tell me, honey, tell me if you can, just why was he shot down on that fateful day? See, it was prejudice, it was hate, their bigotry and fear that sealed his fate. Go on, cry, 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 it won't change a thing. Will this country ever learn? Must it kill at every turn? 'Cause we gotta know just what the consequences bring. 'Cause he had been to the mountaintop, yeah, he knew he could not stop, always searching for the better days ahead. Folks, you better stop and think, 'cause we're heading for the brink. What we gonna do now that the King of Love is dead? Well, he had been to the mountaintop, yeah, and he knew he could not stop. Oh, he was always searching, always looking for the brighter day ahead. Folks, you better stop, wake up and think, 'cause we're heading for the brink. And what we gonna do? What we gonna say? What changes, what changes, what changes are we gonna make now that the King of Love is dead?
Thank you. Many blessings. Our opening reading is from the letter from Birmingham jail by the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. You may ask, why direct action? Why sit-ins, marches, and so forth? Isn't negotiation a better path? You are quite right in calling for negotiation. Indeed, this is the very purpose of direct action. Nonviolent direct action seeks to create such a crisis and foster such a tension in the community, which has constantly refused to negotiate and is forced to confront the issue. It seeks to so dramatize, second service, sorry, dramatize the issue that it can no longer be ignored. My citing the creation of tension is as part of the work of the nonviolent resistor may sound rather shocking. But I confess I am not afraid of the word tension. I have earnestly opposed violent tension, but there is a type of constructive, nonviolent tension which is necessary for growth. Just as Socrates felt it was necessary to create a tension in the mind so that individuals could rise from the bondage of myths and half-truths to the unfettered realm of creative analysis and objective appraisal, so must we see the need for nonviolent demonstrators to create the kind of tension in society that will help humans rise from the dark depths of prejudice and racism to the majestic heights of understanding. End quote. I now invite you to join me in lighting our chalice as we say the words of affirmation which are printed in the order of service and on the screen. As we light, and a new flint. Hold on, I am a patient and persistent man. There we go. Let there be fire. Okay. Thank you. Now offer you these centering in words. Spirit of life and love in which we live and move and have our very being. We come together today to remember the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., his life, his legacy, his call to us still today. Let us remember the many achievements he dedicated his entire life towards. Let us also remember the pain and the sacrifice of his life and the lives of so many others, just to obtain basic civil rights legislation. The work is not yet done, and we must now answer his call with our own sacrifice and our own dedication to bring about the beloved community that King dreamed about. As we take this moment for silent meditation, let us contemplate all that has been gained and all that is still left undone. Our second reading is an excerpt from the letter from Birmingham jail again. Lamentably, it is a historical fact that privileged groups seldom give up privileges voluntarily. We know through painful experience that freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed. Frankly, I have yet to engage in a direct action campaign that was well-timed in the view of those who have not suffered unduly from the disease of segregation. For years now, I have heard the word wait. This wait has almost always meant never. And that we come to see with the distinguished jurist of yesterday, that justice too long delayed is justice denied. We have waited for more than 340 years for our God-given constitutional rights, end quote. Well, one thing you do not have to wait for any longer is to voluntarily give up some of your funds as we take our offering to support the work of this church. Please be as generous as you can for those online or here on your cell phone. There's a link in the YouTube video or on our website under the description of today's service. Let this sacred time begin. one more reading, an excerpt from the letter from Birmingham jail. One may well ask, how can you advocate breaking some laws and obeying others? The answer lies in the fact that there are two types of laws, just and unjust. I would be the first to advocate for obeying just laws. One has not only a legal but a moral responsibility to obey just laws. Conversely, one has a moral responsibility to disobey unjust laws. I would agree with St. Augustine that an unjust law is no law at all. Now, what is the difference between the two? How does one determine what is a just and an unjust law? To put it in the terms of St. Thomas Aquinas, any law that uplifts human personality is a just law, and any law that degrades human personality is unjust. And now it is my pleasure to again introduce Sanaya Carroll.
I wish I knew how it would feel to be free. I wish I could break all these chains holding me, and I wish that I could say all the things that I should say. Say it loud, say it clear, for the whole wide world to hear. I wish I could share all the love that's in my heart. Remove all these bars that keep us apart. And I wish that you could know what it means to be me. And then I'm sure that you'd agree that everybody should be free. Oh, I wish I could give all I'm longing to give. And I wish I could live like I'm longing to live. Yeah, and I wish that I could do all the things that I can do. And though I'm way overdue, I'd be starting from anew. Whoa, 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 hey. Give up waiting. Whoa, 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 hey. would see, and then I'd sing. Oh yes, I'd sing. Oh yes, I would sing. I would raise my voice and sing. Can you sing with me? Let me hear you go. Sing. Hey, 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 hey. Sing. Everybody in the room will sing. When times get rough, we got to sing to get through each day and each night. Let's sing. Yeah, 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 yeah. Come on. Sing. Yeah, yeah. We got to sing. Everybody make you feel good when you sing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Ha. Sing. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I will sing. 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 I will sing what it means to be. I hope you're feeling as good as I am. Free. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Woo. Well, in my early formative years, I watched TV stories about the assassinations of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert Kennedy, and the resignation of President Nixon. And I admit these events made me cynical. I credit Unitarian Universalism with reawakening my soul to trust, to hope, to inspiration. And I think this process is an important part of our religion, to look deeply into something, whether it is in our lifetime or before or still yet to be, and to discern its meaning for us today in our daily journey of our lives in this world. And so it is with Martin Luther King Jr. Depending on when you were born, you might have very different perceptions, memories, and understanding of King and his legacy. Younger generations today can only imagine what it was like to live in a world where people, because of the color of their skin, could not live in certain neighborhoods, could not go to certain schools, could not eat in certain restaurants, could not drink from water fountains, could not even swim in the same pool. There's even a very famous story where a town in the South cemented over their pool instead of letting African Americans swim in the public pool. And the fear of lynching of African Americans was a real and constant danger. And due to direct civil action and court cases, laws did change in the 1960s. As King said, and I quote, "It may be true that the law cannot make a man love me, but it can keep him from lynching me." And I think that's pretty important, end quote. But as Bruce Hornsby's song goes, that's just the way it is. The law don't change in another's mind when all it sees at the hiring time is the line at the color bar. So for the white community who lived through the civil rights era as adults, I can imagine societal change must have been very gut-wrenching, right? Looking back on it, it all seems so necessary, right? So understandable, so just. But living through it created anxiety and fear, no matter what one believed. It was a seismic shift in our country. And it's important to remember what it took to make a dream even a partial reality. It's important not to forget and become complacent. And that is why we remember and why we celebrate and why we honor and commemorate Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. Of the 11 federal holidays, there are only 3 that commemorate individuals. One is Christopher Columbus, the second is George Washington, and the latest third of these commemorates the birthday of Martin Luther King Jr., and is now recognized on the third Monday, which is tomorrow. Now, with our greater understanding of Columbus's tactics in his conquest of the Americas, this holiday, especially for some of my Italian friends in the Bronx, has now become more of a celebration of Italian heritage for them. For others, it engenders a deeper reflection about our historical arrival in this country. But really, I imagine for most, it's a nice 3-day weekend to watch Netflix, take a bike ride, or read a book. But it is interesting to note that there are 12 states that have changed Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day. Not Florida, but 12 states. Still, federally, it is recognized as Columbus Day. Washington's birthday is now recognized as President's Day. The law was changed to move the holiday from Washington's actual birthday to a Monday so people could have a 3-day weekend. That is true. That was the reason it was changed. Even though it's called President's Day, legally, the federal holiday is still celebrating Washington's birthday. They never changed the law about that. Just a little trivia for you there. And in 1983, surprisingly for me, I'm always surprised by this, President Ronald Reagan signed the bill creating the holiday to honor the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And although a federal holiday, many states for a long time refused to actually acknowledge the day as a state holiday. Some states initially called it Civil Rights Day. But finally, in the year 2000, the final state holdout, South Carolina, recognized Martin Luther King Day. 2 southern states, Alabama and Mississippi, not ironically, celebrate MLK Day the same day they celebrate the Confederate General Robert E. Lee's birthday. So there you go, Alabama and Mississippi. After World War II, so why? Why Martin Luther King Jr.? Why does he get a day that we should remember? Well, it's a long history. Many of us may know it. But after World War II, many African Americans returned home after defending this country overseas and still found themselves treated as second-class citizens. The lack of basic civil rights as promised in our Constitution was not available to them. Now, there were varied responses to these inequities. Some, such as Malcolm X and the Black Panthers, advocated for black self-determination for their civil rights, with a threat of violence if necessary. Although they never actually used violence, there was that threat there. Martin Luther King chose the path of nonviolence. He chose the path of integration and cooperation. He chose the path of love. But his love was not a blind love. His nonviolence was not inactive. His quest for justice was not passive. There was no compromise to be had. For King, the issue was a denial of civil rights and the choice of nonviolent direct action. He rejected calls for slowing down and accepting anything else, similar to the reading we heard before. I have heard the word wait, and wait always means never. He rejected that. He knew for his way to succeed, he needed people of good conscience from all races to join him in action. King's famous letter from the Birmingham jail that I read a couple of excerpts from was responding to a call to unity from 8 white religious leaders. And this call to unity advocated for an end to the demonstrations for integration led by outsiders, meaning King, in Birmingham, and called for patience in negotiations. Now, in his rebuke to these white religious leaders, which I read a part of earlier, he called on them to be all in. And, it is a complex situation. These 8 white religious leaders, with only a couple of exceptions, were advocates for integration. 2 of the 8 were subsequently forced from their pulpits for their pro-integration stance. The rabbi of the group had opened up his temple to an integrationist breakaway Baptist church. They were, for the most part, good people, trying to do good in their own way. But change, particularly seismic change, requires sacrifice more than just goodwill. Now, I imagine some of our long-tenured members here could tell you some stories of the conflicts in Sarasota during that time. I note that our public history here on our website shows that there was a cross burned on our church grounds. As well, we know 2 of our members who were African American, Dr. John Chenault and his wife Dorothy, were found dead in 1965, not long after they purchased a home in a previously segregated neighborhood. So it's not just out there, it is here, it is everywhere. In 1966, Martin Luther King gave the Ware Lecture at our Unitarian Universalist General Assembly. This is a gathering of all of our congregations once a year. And he told the story of Rip Van Winkle, waking up after 20 years sleeping and seeing the picture of King George had replaced with President Washington's picture, and realizing that he had not only slept 20 years, but that he had slept through the revolution. And King challenged us to not sleep through the revolution. He said, and I quote, "At its best, the love ethic can be a reality in a social revolution. Most revolutions in the past have been based on hope and hate, with the rising expectation of the revolutionaries implemented by hate for their perpetrators of the unjust system in the old order." I think a different thing about the revolution that has taken place in this country is that it has maintained the hope element, but at the same time it has added the dimension of love, end quote. Martin Luther King realized it is not enough to just talk about social justice or to talk about change or to talk about reform. We must be willing to act and to sacrifice for justice. He was arrested over 30 times, and he, of course, paid the ultimate price with his life. And we must be willing, if we want to answer his call, we must be willing to go all in on justice in order for it to become real. King refused to demonize those who denigrated and disagreed with him. In time, more and more people saw the power of love, the power of direct nonviolent action as a way to achieve change. This is why King deserved a federal holiday. Without initiating violence, although there was violence, he never initiated violence. King helped this nation initiate societal changes that were needed. His deeply held religious values allowed him to realize that his personal life mission was larger than just himself. And his words and his deeds inspired others and inspired them that change was possible. And I am here today to carry on that message, to remember that change is possible. And back in the 60s, we needed maximum effort and sacrifice and just pushed the pendulum a little bit towards the side of justice. And we have changed. I do believe we have changed fundamentally as a country due to that. And now again, we are at the tipping point of society today with our weakening of the Voters' Rights Act, with the ongoing voter suppression, with the continued police violence against unarmed BIPOC individuals, with the school-to-prison pipeline, with new laws to prevent the teaching of racist history in our state, with an assault on LGBTQ rights and women's reproductive justice rights, with rising anti-Semitism and Asian hate crimes, with economic inequality rising. The pendulum for civil rights is moving backwards. The work for justice is not ended. We must be vigilant. I sometimes relate the story, the justice work that we do, to the myth of the Greek king Sisyphus, who for his punishment was condemned for eternity to push a boulder up a hill only to have it roll back down again. But you know, we often only remember the end of the Sisyphus story, Sisyphus's punishment. We forget what his crime was. His crime was to capture death, so that people would not have to die. And in one version of the stories, the war god Ares would have nothing of that and freed death and captured Sisyphus. Martin Luther King Jr., like Sisyphus, tried to save lives. But King angered the war gods of our own country when he started speaking out against the war in Vietnam. And then many of King's allies abandoned him after that denouncement. Albert Camus, in his book, The Myth of Sisyphus, says, and I quote, "The struggle itself is enough to fill a person's heart. One must imagine Sisyphus happy," end quote. And I imagine that vision of a full heart when I think of Martin Luther King Jr., talking about himself not reaching the mountaintop, but knowing we will get there. And I would like to reimagine and rewrite the story of Sisyphus, where those who he saved came to his aid and helped him push the boulder up and over the mountaintop. And that is our task, to come together, to keep pushing that boulder, keep pushing until everyone comes together and pushes that boulder with us. And when that happens, then it will be downhill all the way after that, and there will be justice. We are on our way, but we are not there yet. We're not even close, but we are on our way. True civil rights will only occur by being engaged, being all in, inch by inch, pushing the pendulum, pushing the rock, whatever metaphor you like, but we need to keep pushing because there are plenty of other people pushing back on the other side. The Reverend William Barber, current co-leader of the Poor People's Campaign, said, and I quote, "In some ways, these tactics are not Jim Crow. They do not feature night riders and sheets. This is, in fact, James Crow Esquire. Jim Crow used blunt tools. James Crow Esquire uses surgical tools, consultants, high-paid consultants, and lawyers to cut out the heart of black political power," end quote. Well, until we are all pushing on one side, until we are all living with the ethics of love in our heart and in our actions, we cannot rest. And so I ask you to consider in what ways are you acting to make our community more just for all people. And so I would like us to remember our work is not yet done. I'm going to ask you to do a call and response. So let's try that now. Our work is not yet done. As long as there is poverty,
our work is not yet done.
as long as there is homelessness,
our
As long as there is hunger. As long as voting rights are still being restricted. As long as our LGBTQIA siblings are under threat. As long as people are being profiled based on the color of their skin. As long as students do not have the support they need to succeed. As long as people are being shot in schoolhouses. As long as we continue to pollute and tear apart the environment. As long as reproductive justice rights are not embedded in law in this country. As long as there are any people in need, our work is not yet done. We cannot rest on our laurels. There are more seismic shifts needed to get us through that mountaintop. We must continue to remember what we have gained, but we must also remember what and who has been sacrificed, and we must remember to side with love, so that one day, just as in the words of the prophet Amos, justice shall roll down like water, and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. May it one day be so. And now, once more, for our closing song, Sanaya Carroll, Wade in the Water.
Before I did the first service today, Reverend Jay made a little mistake. He said, "You can talk." I said, "Really?" He said, "Okay." So I'm just going to say one thing really quick. Have you noticed? Can you smell it? You can probably see it. The house is on fire. Our collective house is on fire. So what are we going to do about that? Do you realize that because the house is on fire and we can see it and we can smell it and we know what's happening, we can probably feel the heat in all different kinds of ways, that it gives us a sense of urgency. It makes us want to do something, right? Want to make some changes, small changes, whatever. Maybe you can't carry the hose. Maybe you just get a little glass of water and sort of, help out. But all of us collectively helping out, doing whatever bit we can, whenever we can, that is what's going to put out the fire. And I noticed I did use the word water, which brings me to the tune that I'm going to do. It's a Negro spiritual, and it's called Wade in the Water. I'm sure you all know this song over and over again. And I invite you all to sing along. Please, I love when you sing along. It makes me happy. And also, this tune was originally thought of as something for the enslaved peoples of this country. Because getting out of this system, that amazingly cruel, abusive system, was tantamount to your survival. Even just the thought of it could maybe keep you going another little bit. But to actually think that you could escape, woof. And one really key way of escaping was going through the water. You lose your scent. The dogs can't find you. And I just think of how it must have been. During COVID, I was thinking about this when we had to stay home. Remember that? What a pain that was. I can't go out to a restaurant. And I kept thinking of Harriet Tubman and people hanging out with her in the marshes, and they're in the water, and the leeches are crawling up your legs, and all this stuff is happening, and you're like, I just want to go. And she's like, don't you move. Talk about inconvenient, right? And we're here, I can't go to a restaurant, I can't go to the movies, oh, poor me. Oh, boy, So I just think of so many people throughout the world who have gone through these trials and tribulations, and we have more strength in us than we like to think we do. Anyway, basically, there was one other thing I wanted to say, but I forget what it is, so it's not that important. So, we're going to get going with our song. Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Let's try that again. I like that. Wade in the water. Wade in the water, children. Wade in the water. gonna trouble the water? Who's that yonder dressed in red? Wade in the water. Must be the children that Moses led. And God's gonna trouble the water. Wade in the water. Wade in the water, children. Wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Who's that yonder dressed in white? Wade in the water. Must be the children of the Israelites. God's gonna trouble the water. Wade in the water. Wade in the water. Wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Who's that yonder dressed in blue? Wade in the water. Must be the children that's coming through. God's gonna trouble the water. Wade in the water. All right. Wade in the water, children. Wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. If you don't believe I've been redeemed, where you get in the water, just see the spirit of love coming out of me. God's gonna trouble the water, yeah. Wade in the water, wade in the water, children. Wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. God's gonna trouble the water. What? God's gonna trouble the water. He's gonna bring us to the light. We're gonna find the light in ourselves, celebrate the light, share the light. God is right here, inside of us. It feels so good. God's gonna trouble the water. Amen. Woo.
And those are, stay rising, those are good enough closing words for me. Let us now extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of the truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Thank you all for your presence here today. Thank you. And thank you. Thank you.